Welcome to the co-hosted webinar on immigration and ICE. It is co-hosted by the League of Women Voters. That is who I'm representing tonight. I'm president of the League of Women Voters, Davis County. My name is Angie Sterner. An introduction to the League of Women Voters. We are nonpartisan in that we do not support candidates or political parties. Nonpartisan is not the same as non-political. We support voter rights, voter education, and voter engagement, among other things. We only take positions on issues after we have met consensus within our leagues. We are co-hosting with the Citizens for Compassionate Change, which started last year, a very grassroots neighborhood group, which my co-host Hillary McChesney can say a little bit more about in a minute when she introduces our guest speaker. So a few housekeeping items. We should all be muted except the panelists. The Q&A is the place where you want to put your questions. And the recording, it is recorded, and the recording should be available Wednesday. And we will try to use only the first name of persons asking questions. I can't promise that I know enough about the technology that it won't be in the Q&A when you submit your question. So we'll do our best.
There is a way to send them.
So if you would like to send anonymously, please feel free to do that. That is totally fine. With that, I'll turn it over to Hillary to introduce CCC and Dan Black.
Good evening. Thank you everyone who is here. I are in the same room with Mackenzie Whitener. So let us know if there are any sound issues. We might bounce off of each other a little bit. So I'm Hillary McChesney. I started Citizens for Compassionate Change last year with the goal of trying to just get changes going in my own neighborhood. I know I can't change the world. I know I can't change my entire country, but I reached out to some like-minded women, hoping that I would get a little traction with things that we can do in our neighborhood that improve our communities. And we're based on compassion. Each of our meetings start with a decree that at the door, we're going to leave partisanship, religion, bias, and blame. And we're going to bring with us compassion, a problem-solving attitude, hope, constructive feedback, and accountability. We've really had some great successes, what I would call successes. In November, we helped with a food pantry as SNAP benefits were diminished, and we were able to help more than 30 families as we donated to Center of Hope. And then in December, we were able to help several families who were both food insecure and weren't able to provide Christmases for their own homes. And we helped Whittier Elementary School with their entire angel tree. And Mackenzie's here also as a panelist. She was instrumental in helping set that up. Our January project is to help with information about ICE in our communities and immigration and being able to help those around us who are in that process. So welcome to this evening's webinar. We're very excited that so many of you have some interest in it. We reached out to an expert. Dan Black is a friend of mine, but also a professional. He has been practicing since 2014. He graduated from the University of Utah S.J. Quinney College and was admitted to the bar in October of 2014. He has extensive immigration law experience doing consular processing cases, affirmative and defensive asylum cases, deferred action for childhood arrivals, U visas, T visas, cancellation of removal, adjustment of status, naturalization, and special immigrant juvenile cases, among others. So he knows what he's talking about. He's one of the few SIJ specialists in the state of Utah. He regularly appears in immigration court and at USCIS on behalf of his clients, as well as federal and state criminal courts. He specializes in committing the intersection of criminal and immigration law. Dan also regularly presents to community organizations on immigration rights and immigration law enforcement. He speaks Spanish. He served for 2 years in Chile and Mexico. He lived in Mexico for 2 years. He's currently the regional partner of the Ogden office of Stowell Crayk PLLC in Ogden, Utah. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Dan to correct anything and to begin his presentation. And again, thank you so much, Dan.
Thank you, Hillary, and thank you, Angie. It's a pleasure for me to be here. I I've given this presentation and others like it, including Know Your Rights presentations in English and in Spanish, many times, including during the first Trump administration, and now multiple times just in this last year to different schools and community organizations and churches. And really, this is something I'm passionate about. I'll talk about it till I'm blue in the face for anybody who will listen, because I really want everybody, especially our immigrant community, to know their rights. So um, thanks for that intro. One word that I've created or that we've made up is called crimmigration, which is the intersection between immigration and criminal law, and that's our specialty is crimmigration, um, because we represent people both in immigration court and in criminal court, and focus on mitigating immigration consequences for folks who have to go to criminal court. But um, I want to get started by sharing my screen here. Hopefully you can see this. This is just a quick PowerPoint that I put together about what's happening. And I think that important to knowing what's happening now is kind of having an idea of where we've been. So I'm gonna just talk about where we've been, where we are, a lot about the sensitive locations policy, because that's I think really relevant to what ICE is doing, and then where we're going from here. So, and then we're going to have a Q&A. Please submit questions. I'm happy to answer questions throughout, um, and also at the end we'll do Q&A. So, where we've been. Every new administration in the U.S. is different, right? They have different priorities, and unfortunately, immigration law, which is federal law, can only be changed by Congress. And the last substantive, wide-ranging changes to U.S. immigration law was back in 1996. Our immigration law hasn't changed for a long time, and because Congress is so divided and it's so difficult for them to have the political will to make substantive changes to immigration law, even though comprehensive immigration reform is needed. Each president, when they come in, is forced to, use executive orders to influence how they want immigration law to be enforced, right? And that can benefit immigrants. It can also be very detrimental to immigrants, depending on who's in the White House. And for example, DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, was created by executive order by Obama. And then when Trump came in 2017, he signed an executive order to eliminate DACA, right? And recently he signed executive orders for regarding birthright citizenship, and his Remain in Mexico policy, which went into effect in the first Trump administration and is now back in effect again. And these are often challenged in court, but that is the way that different presidents who come into office are able to affect their policy changes in immigration law. So, where are we now? Well, here we are again with another Trump administration. And just like last time, there's been a lot of executive orders, and they state what the priorities of this president are. And just like last time, his priority for people who are the focus of immigration enforcement is everybody who's undocumented. Under uh, under Obama, it was people who had DUIs, domestic violence, and felonies. Okay. Under Biden, it was folks who had aggravated felonies and prior deportations. And now under Trump, and just like the first time, it's every single person who's in the United States without legal status. And so whenever the priority is everybody, then it falls back on, well, what do they have the capacity to do, right? How many ICE agents do they have? What is the capacity of ICE to affect change? Well, the first time around, they didn't get a huge increase in ICE agents like they wanted. and they didn't increase the amount of immigration judges to be able to process removal cases. And so the first time around, there was not a significant increase in deportations because they were hamstrung by the system as it was. Well, they tried the Remain in Mexico policy. They limited legal immigration. They tried to revoke TPS and DACA last time. They made it so that prosecutors in immigration court have to prosecute every single case. And travel bans. These are all things that happened the first time around, and they're happening again. But this time around is different because the Trump administration learned last time that if you give everybody due process, it takes a long time to deport somebody. So this time around, they've started some new tactics. Okay, so what's new this time? The revocation of birthright citizenship. That's a whole other topic, but that's new this time. Punishing sanctuary jurisdictions with ICE raids is new, and how they're doing that is new. They have increased the amount of ICE officers, and Congress has made this possible with a giant increase in ICE's budget. With the big beautiful bill that passed in July, DHS got an increase of over $165 million for DHS enforcement. And a lot of that goes to ICE. They're offering, bonuses, signing bonuses, and all sorts of things just to recruit ICE agents. Um, and so that they could do larger ICE raids, and they are specifically targeting Democratic-led cities that, like we've seen. They've suspended all refugees, and the only folks outside the United States that are being allowed in as refugees, which is really a violation of our international agreements to honor the Convention Against Torture. And I mean, there's so much problems with just suspending all refugees. But the only refugees that are now allowed into the United States are Afrikaners from South Africa, white Afrikaners specifically. So that just tells you what the priorities of this administration are. Private prisons have boomed and are getting contracts from the federal government with funding from the big beautiful bill. They are building more private prisons than ever before to house undocumented people who are in ICE custody. We've all heard about Guantanamo Bay and Alligator Alcatraz, and now they've deported people to countries that they're not even from. They've deported folks to South Sudan, uh, to Mexico, who are not from those countries, and it is still happening. They do have quotas for ICE arrests. Whoops, for ICE arrests, and there's just a huge pressure for mass arrests and deportations. And what is happening this time that's different from the last time? Last time they did round up a lot of folks and put them into deportation proceedings. Okay. Um, so much so that it really created a bottleneck, and the immigration courts were so overwhelmed that they actually deported fewer people during the first Trump administration than they would have had they just let the system work. But this time around, instead of trying to push all these people through the immigration courts where they get due process, they are pressuring most of these folks to sign their own deportation. And unfortunately, it's working. Many people that I have spoken to, their families, and even my clients, when they get into ICE custody, they are being intimidated, um, they're being coerced. They're being lied to. They're being told that and scared into signing their own deportation because that is the fastest way for ICE to be able to deport somebody. ICE cannot deport anyone who does not have a final order of removal. A final order of removal can only be issued by an immigration judge. Here in the state of Utah, we started out the year with 5 immigration judges for the whole state of Utah, and now we're down to 2, um, because their focus is not to increase and have a robust due process through immigration courts to have people's cases adjudicated. No, it is they don't care about that anymore. They're down to two judges who have over 75,000 cases each, and it's taking at least 5 years for somebody's case to be adjudicated. But they don't have 5 years to wait, and so they're pressuring people to sign their own removal order so that they can be put on the next plane back to their country. And it is working, right? They're saying, hey, you can either go in front of the judge and it'll be months and months and months before you have your case heard, or you can sign this paper right now and we'll put you on the next plane. And most of these folks have no criminal history. They've never been in jail before. They have, they're scared to death because they don't know what's going on, and so they sign. And it is an effective practice that they're using, and they also have a giant budget that allows them to hold on to more people in custody until they sign or end up going in front of an immigration judge.
Dan, can I
Yes.
interrupt?
Yep.
Okay, so if they do not sign their own deportation order
Right.
under duress or whatever
Mhm.
is happening in these appointments that they're going to, what happens to them in that interim time with the bottleneck in the courts and whatever? Like, do they have to be in a facility those years, and that's why they're
Yes. They are
people are
being
saying?
held. They're being held first in county jails, typically, but then they're being transported to an ICE detention center.
Sorry, Dan, you're
Right.
muted. You'll have to back up.
Oh, how do I? I am muted?
You're not muted. Angie, do you have
Okay.
sound down?
So they are being held in ICE detention centers. There are no ICE detention centers in the state of Utah. So everyone who gets picked up in the state of Utah by ICE either gets transported to eventually to Las Vegas, Nevada, or Denver, Colorado, or Tacoma, Washington, or any other ICE facility that has space in the United States where they will appear in front of an immigration judge or just be put on the next plane. But most of our county jails have agreements with ICE to hold people until ICE comes to pick them up. And so they are being held, and they can either spend weeks, months, years in ICE custody if they're fighting their case, depending on how they want to fight their case, or they can sign their removal and they're gone within days. And so that unfortunately is happening, and it is a very effective strategy that they're using. Now, the only change to immigration law, I'm not going to go into this very much. The only change to immigration law that's really been passed by Congress that has had a significant effect on ICE detention and removal operations has been the Lake and Riley Act, which passed. It was the first act of Congress after Trump took office in February. You can read about it. I'm not going to talk about it here, but it's really
Dan, can I
established.
interrupt before
Yep.
we go on to the
Mhm.
Lakin law?
Sure.
There's a question that we've had that was pertinent to a few seconds ago. Why is Utah down to only 2 immigration judges from 5?
So we had 5 immigration judges. 2 of them retired, or one of them quit, one of them retired, and one of them was fired just out of the blue. Um, and so the two most senior judges are the ones who are still here with us. They are apparently training a new judge, and I'm sure that they want to get more judges in, but the focus on having immigration judges, um, that that's not being played out in reality. They're not really interested in having a robust immigration court system. They're just interested in picking up as many people as possible, detaining them, no matter how long it takes, and hoping that they will sign their own removal as soon as possible so that they can just have a greater number of deportations. That's the focus. So, like I said, I'm not going to talk so much about the Lake and Riley Act. We're going to move on. So, what does ICE do? What is their role? They can only remove someone, like I said, from the United States who has a final order of removal. They can pick somebody up and immediately remove them only if they already have a prior order of removal or have been deported before. They can just immediately deport them or reinstate that prior order of removal. They can detain people while in removal proceedings, and they can hold them while they're being processed to have the removal proceedings start. And when I say removal proceedings, that's the same as deportation proceedings, but that means that they go in front of an immigration judge, and an immigration judge orders them either removed or grants them some relief from removal. Okay, but that process can take years. Um, they are enforcing civil immigration law, okay? And they can arrest anyone inside the U.S. who is in violation of civil immigration law and who is detainable, okay? Now, the U.S. Supreme Court recently said that they are allowed to racially profile, meaning as they're going around in public, they are allowed to stop anybody that they deem a potential violator of immigration law. And it is very unfortunate, in my opinion, that they can do this, but they are able to stop somebody because of the color of their skin. They are able to continue to question them because of any indicators that they feel are relevant to somebody's immigration status. And that could be what kind of documents they have on them at the time. It can be how they speak, the color of their skin, how they look. ICE officers are allowed to do that. We are seeing that they are coordinating and we're working with other law enforcement agencies like local police officers, the DEA, the ATF, so the Drug Enforcement Agency, the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, federal marshals. They are using other local law enforcement to help them, and they are basically wanting them to help them with ICE enforcement. Um, they can, when they pick somebody up, they can decide, you know what, we are not going to detain this person. We are not going to hold them in an ICE facility. But basically, not that's they don't exercise that discretion anymore under this Trump administration. I spoke with an ICE officer who let me know that right now, if they want to exercise discretion and decide, listen, this person who is undocumented, we're just going to let them go. They have to get permission directly from Washington, D.C., and in some cases, directly from the ICE, the border czar, so or the ICE director. So we're not seeing ICE exercise any discretion on who they are detaining. If they find somebody who is undocumented, they are detaining them. They are picking up everybody who is in a jail in the state of Utah with an ICE hold, and I think that that's going to stay the case throughout the rest of this administration.
Dan, I
So,
have another question that might be good timing here.
uh-huh. Go ahead.
My understanding is that ICE has no jurisdiction over legal U.S. citizens. Why should any legal U.S. citizen submit to an ICE officer who has no jurisdiction over them?
They do not have to. And it is true that ICE does not have jurisdiction over any U.S. citizen. Now, here's the great contradiction or the great irony, the catch-22, right? We as U.S. citizens are not required to carry legal documentation proving our U.S. citizenship. Okay? But if an ICE agent suspects that somebody who says they're a U.S. citizen is not a U.S. citizen, the way they determine that is by detaining them and then checking their fingerprints and doing a check. I mean, they have a process to go out and find out if someone's a U.S. citizen. But in the meantime, they have detained that person, and they don't have jurisdiction to detain them. So the cart before the horse. How do they determine that someone's a U.S. citizen? Uh, and then once they do, they have to release them. But in order for them to make that determination, they're going to detain them. It's a terrible loophole in the law, essentially. And so, you know, we're seeing U.S. citizens being detained by ICE all the time now because ICE can simply say, I don't believe you when you say you're a U.S. citizen, detain them, and then once they prove that they're a U.S. citizen, they say, oh, shoot, sorry, and they have to be released. So it's really and in the past, ICE has been reticent to arrest somebody who claims to be a U.S. citizen, but and that has happened in the past, but now it is happening much more frequently because of the pressure that's on ICE to arrest and deport as many people as possible. So I do want to talk about the sensitive locations policy. This is something that has been in place for a long time, and it is a voluntary policy by the Department of Homeland Security, which they have followed for a long time, and which Donald Trump, when he came into office in January, one of the first executive orders he signed in 2025 was basically to get rid of this policy or allow ICE to enforce immigration law anywhere, even in sensitive locations. Now, the reason that ICE has had this policy previously was because they didn't want to be terrorizing children. They didn't want to be seen as insensitive to religion, to healthcare workers, to teachers and schools, and these kind of sensitive locations. And so, this I found as a publication from DHS. It is no longer their policy. It's no longer available as far as I'm aware. But they would previously not do immigration enforcement in schools, at bus stops, in hospitals, in places of worship, at religious or civil ceremonies, or during public demonstrations. As we've seen over the last almost year, that's really not the case anymore. Now, I've spoken with ICE officers here in Utah who have told me that they have no intention of not continuing this sensitive locations policy here in Utah. Why? Because ICE officers do not want to be on the evening national news going into a church or going into a school or going into a hospital, right? It is a PR decision more than anything that they don't want the bad press. Now, having said that, I realize at this point kind of how ridiculous that sounds. But what ICE has told me is that, listen, if we are aware that somebody is in a school or is in a church and we are planning on arresting them, we're just going to wait outside, right? I mean, they have no reason to go into a school or to go into a church or a ceremony to interrupt it because they can simply wait, right? They are, and that's what I've seen happening here in Utah so far. They will wait outside someone's residence and pull them over as soon as they leave. They'll be outside off of school property to effect a traffic stop, or outside of a religious building or something like that, right? They don't really need to go inside. Now, they've also in the past not gone into courthouses, but that is something that they're doing regularly now, right? They're going into courthouses, public buildings, and making ICE arrests. Now, we only still have approximately 40 to 50 ICE officers here in the state of Utah. Okay. I'll tell you right now that the vast majority of them are in Minnesota because of this ICE blitz that is happening currently. I don't know when they're going to come back to Utah, but at this very moment, there's a reduced number of ICE agents in Utah. But you know that's not very many for an entire state, and so they are still really doing the same thing that they have been doing all along. They're focusing their efforts on searching out specific people who they know about, who have specific criminal convictions, prior deportations, things like that. But the difference now in the state of Utah is that when an ICE agent happens to come across somebody in their regular line of work who happens to also be undocumented, they are basically required to also arrest that person. And so in their regular enforcement efforts, as they find other people, they are picking them up as well and taking them into ICE custody.
And I have a question
Yep.
pertinent to this line of discussion.
Uh-huh.
The question is, I feel like it's only a matter of time at this point. If they do decide to go around or into a school, is there anything that can be done by admin or other adults? This means car
Great.
pickup line, playground in the actual school. Do we just keep kids inside?
Okay, here we go. What to do in case ICE shows up. So anywhere in all of these places, ICE can go into any public location. They can go into any public building when they're open during regular business hours. They can go into any government building during the regular business hours. They can go anywhere that is a public building. Now that includes schools and churches, right? I mean, they can go in. Their own policy was they didn't want to because it just doesn't look good, right? But they can. So if ICE is going into one thing I want to make very clear, where they cannot go is onto private property unless they have a warrant. Now they can go up to the front door of a house, just like anyone else who's going to solicit anything at a house, right? They can go up to the front door, but they cannot go into a private space. They can't go into a private building. They can't go into a private home. They can't go into the employees only area of a business unless they have a warrant. Now, here's the big secret. ICE never has a warrant. I've never seen a warrant that ICE has had. I have seen ICE go along with local law enforcement or with the federal marshals, and they have warrants for criminal investigations, or for federal warrants that are related to federal criminal cases. But ICE themselves, they don't have warrants. They don't have warrants, okay? And so, if ICE is at the front door of a residence, a private residence, okay, one thing that you can do is ask them to show you a warrant, right? And if they do not have a warrant and you do not open the door, they cannot come in. They just cannot, okay? You can ask them to show you the warrant through the window or slide it under the door, but they're not going to do that because they don't have warrants, okay? And so, but they can then just go and wait on the curb for somebody to leave their house, and that's typically what they do. Um, and I have a different presentation that I give to immigrant groups, right? Parents and kids, and about what they should do when ICE shows up, right? Which is different from what U.S. citizens can and should do when ICE shows up. So I'm focusing now on what U.S. citizens should do, right? And the main thing is record the event. Take out your cell phone and start the video, okay? And you can announce that you're recording them. You can narrate what's going on. You can talk to them. You can express what you're thinking. You have your freedom of speech, right? But if you're going to do that, do not physically interfere, okay? Do not get in their space. Do not try and stop them because in the state of Utah, we have criminal codes which can be enforced for people who interfere even with ICE agents. So that's why I have here it's Class B misdemeanor to know, or by the exercise of reasonable care should have known, that a peace officer is seeking to effect a lawful arrest or detention of them or another individual, and if they interfere with that arrest by either refusing to perform an act by a lawful order that is necessary to effect the arrest. So if an officer says, back away, or get out of this area, right? That can be a lawful order for them necessary to effect the arrest of somebody else, for example. And if you do not do what they're asking, back away, then that could be interference with the arresting officer, and they can arrest you for that Class B misdemeanor. It has to be made by the officer, and or if you refuse or refrain from performing an act that would impede the arrest or detention. Now, if they say stop recording, well, that doesn't recording does not impede the arrest or the detention. Okay, you can record, you can talk, you can say what you think, those things do not impede an order, and that is not they cannot just say stop recording, right? That is not a lawful order for them to say stop talking, stop recording. But they can say move out of this area, back up, right? I mean, to physically interfere with an arrest is a crime. The other crime that we need to know about is uh, the why am I blanking? It's first degree felony to hinder. Da, 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 da. Oh, obstruction of justice is obstruction of justice. Okay, so it is a first degree felony, or it can be. Sorry, it is up to a first degree felony. Okay, it can be a misdemeanor. It can be a felony, just depending on what the underlying crime that is being um, obstructed is. But if anybody with intent to hinder, delay, or prevent the investigation, apprehension, prosecution, conviction, or punishment of any person regarding conduct that constitutes a criminal offense. Now, I would argue that just being undocumented in the United States is not a criminal. It's not a criminal offense. Um, it is a civil immigration violation. But uh, that's something for your attorney to argue later on. The constitutional criminal, if you harbor or conceal a person, okay, if you provide a person with transportation, disguise, or other means of avoiding discovery or apprehension, if you warn someone of impending discovery or apprehension, or if you provide false information regarding that person, any of those can be obstruction of justice. So let's have an example. Let's say I'm at my law firm and I see that ICE has pulled into the Maverick across the street and they're doing ICE enforcement. And I see somebody who is running away from ICE. If I open my door and say, hey, come in here, right? And then they come into my business, I have now, warned them, I have harbored them, and I would be arrested for obstruction of justice. Okay. But let's say this person whom I see, and I know that they're running from ICE, right? But they, on their own volition, come into my office, and they happen to go into the very back of the office where we have employees only. Okay, and then ICE shows up. What I'm going to do, and what my staff is going to do, is they're going to say nothing, nothing at all. The ICE will come in. They'll say, "Hey, we saw a guy come in here." We don't have to respond to them. We have our Fifth Amendment right. We don't have to answer any of their questions. They cannot go into any private area of my business without a warrant. Okay? And so we're not going to open doors for them. We're not going to say, oh, yes, come on in, because they need consent to search. And so if ICE doesn't have consent, they need a warrant. They're not going to get a warrant. They can't come in. Okay? We have not harbored, we have not warned, we have not done anything like that, right? But because those are affirmative acts that you would have to do to conceal somebody or to obstruct justice. Okay.
Dan,
Yes.
we're getting a lot of questions with this line of discussion.
Yep.
If you could just hit on a few things, I'm going to kind of fire these off.
Well,
I think you may have answered, can I prevent them from coming in without repercussion? For instance, if they suspect someone undocumented, I think we've kind of addressed that. What if we are on a private job site? This is from a small business owner that does construction, a private job site that is not owned by us. And what is recommended to show that my business is a safe place for immigrants? And then along with that is a different question. What behavior do you suggest is safe for US citizens considering the recent shooting of a woman in Minnesota? If they give you an order and say leave the area and I don't, or don't stop recording, then it seems like they can shoot me. It may be illegal, but I'm dead.
right. Okay, so the first question, they cannot come onto private property, so they cannot come onto a construction site. They can wait right outside the construction site. I've actually seen this happen in Salt Lake, and the workers literally slept at the site until ICE left. They cannot come onto a construction site. I am, as far as like a requirement to say that this is safe for immigrants. There's no requirement to say that it's safe for immigrants. And I maybe I need some clarification on what that means, but um, if you have undocumented immigrants that are on private property, whether they are employees or customers or anything like that, um, private property again is private, and ICE cannot go onto that property. Okay, um, and them just being there for any reason other than trying to hide from ICE, doesn't mean that you're harboring them. Okay. Um, and so because it's all about what you knew when they came onto the property. So I would say that you know it can then be up to a U.S. citizen to, and I'm going to just go down here. So to record the event, right? Show, record the ICE officers. You can ask them for IDs or legal documentation, like I said about an arrest. Okay. You can write down their names, their supervisor's name, what was said, right? I mean, the idea is to record it, but if you can't record it, write it down. Um, don't physically interfere, but we can just being there and recording and letting them know that we're recording them has shown to be effective in many cases. And ICE does not like uh, going into crowds, right? Especially of crowds of people who are filming them. They do not like going where they're not wanted, okay, and where there are lots of people who are recording them and showing what they're doing, okay. I mean that's why they're covering their
Can
faces.
I butt in with a quick
So,
clarification?
yep,
So we have a question, is the use of the whistle effective? And I also wanted to know, and maybe that's what this person asking the question meant. They said, what about the whistle? Is it impeding or directing someone or
no,
otherwise possibly illegal?
no. I mean, you can use whistles. You can make noise, right? I mean, that's not going to hold up, I think, in a court of law as far as did you warn someone of an impending discovery or apprehension, right? Because there's easily many different reasons for someone to whistle, okay, or to use a whistle, right? It could be just I wanted to annoy the officer. So that's whistles are fine, right? But you do want to be careful about warning somebody else, by saying, "Hey, ICE is over here, get out." You just
Okay.
want to be careful about that. Okay.
So does that answer the last question was just asked, can we say ICE is here?
Um, I don't know that that would necessarily be a warning. ICE is here. I mean, you're just kind of stating a fact, right? They would have to show that you were saying that with intent to warn a specific person about, impending discovery or apprehension. So,
So maybe a gray area?
yeah, I mean, I mean, and to the next question, which was, well, what can we do, right? Well, you can be there, right? You can show up, you can record them. Now, if ICE is saying, stop recording and leave this area completely, you can back up, but you continue to record. I mean, they can't tell you to get so far away that you can't see them, can't see what they're doing, right? Because at some point, as long as you are physically out of their space where they can effect an arrest, they have no basis to have you move further away. Um, and so, if they say back up, you take a couple of steps back, right? If they say back up again, you take a couple of steps back, right? But they can't just keep doing that for blocks and blocks, right? I mean, so there's no way where they can get you to move so far away that you cannot see or hear.
Okay. Sorry,
Yeah.
one more clarification. If
Yep.
you tell someone that you think is at risk of being detained or that you think ICE is going to question, or maybe they already are, I don't know, even if they already are, can you say run or is giving directions
Yes,
illegal?
don't give directions to anybody about what they should do to avoid arrest or deportation or anything like that. Especially if it is the subject of who they're going after. Now, If you are, just kind of directing the people around you, hey guys, we should all back up, or we should all get away from here. I mean, that's for the purpose of keeping people safe. Um, right? I think that's probably fine. Because they really have to show that you had the intent to interfere, or that you reasonably should have known that this was going to interfere with an arrest, or you have to have the intent to hinder, delay, or prevent the investigation, the apprehension, the prosecution of the conviction, right? So the intent is important, right? And where it's directed is important as well. So I wanted to just go over some other ways, right? Besides showing up, besides recording ICE, besides trying to get their information, besides asking for documentation. If they come to a school, for example, that's what you do, right? You record them. You say, "Hey, what is your badge number? Who's your supervisor? Things like that." Okay, and you record them. Now, other ways that you can help immigrants that really has nothing to do with ICE is being a financial sponsor for green card applicants. Every green card applicant has to prove that they're not going to become a public charge, meaning they're not going to use government resources to sustain their life, like food stamps, Medicaid, welfare. Now, these folks don't qualify for those programs anyways. But in order for them to check the box and feel warm and fuzzy inside, um, when they're processing the applications for these green cards, they have to have a financial sponsor. Now, a financial sponsor is any U.S. citizen or permanent resident inside the United States who is willing to sign a document saying that they are willing to use their resources to make sure this person does not become a public charge. And they become a financial sponsor, but in reality, they don't ever have to give that person a dime ever. It's just if that person later on commits fraud and tries to steal benefits from the government by lying on their forms and saying I'm a citizen and I want Medicaid or food stamps or things like that, and they get caught and they cannot pay the government back, then the government can sue the financial sponsor. I've never heard of that happening, and it's just near impossible. So, but there are lots of folks who just simply can't file their application for a green card because they don't have the financial sponsor that they need. And to qualify, you have to make a certain amount of money and have it declared on your tax return. It's not much, right? Over 23,000 for a single person, like around 50,000 for a family of five. And you can sponsor a green card applicant. So that's one way. And if you're interested in that, please contact me. I'll have my information at the end. There's also probably online forums where if you're willing to do that, it's a great help to people.
Can I
Sure.
ask a real
Yeah, go
quick
ahead.
question? How long does the sponsorship last? Is it forever?
It's 10 years or until they become a U.S. citizen, which is usually after 5 years, right? But that doesn't affect your credit. It doesn't affect it's not public. It doesn't show up on any financial reports or anything like that. So it's really just in my accountable is um, is is a really great service to immigrants. Um,
Dan, I think
yes.
a question here
Sure.
can fit in nicely.
Okay.
Is it okay to talk to anyone who's under arrest to try and get their name, birth date, family contact, or is that impeding? Like if someone's going to get picked up, I know you and I have talked about how sometimes their family doesn't know where they are. Is it impeding to say, may I contact your family?
No. And so ideally that's happening before there's an arrest, and that's kind of difficult to do. But one incidence when that might be possible, for example, is we are seeing now that a lot of people who are here and who are already in removal proceedings, for example, have been cited, have been given a summons to go and appear at an ICE office or at a what's called an ISAP office. ISAP is a private entity who is subcontracted by ICE to supervise people who are here under who are already in removal proceedings. And they're the ones who put like ankle monitors on or have them do check-ins on their phone. They'll go and visit them at their homes and things like that. So they're going to ISAP offices, but we don't know if they're going to come out. They might be going into an ICE office or an ISAP office, and then they're not seen again. So being there to be able to say, "Hey, can I just grab your infos before you go in?" Just in case, right? Or can I go in with you and just kind of be there and observe? You know, the those offices are public, right? And so the public can go in and just having a witness there and maybe somebody who can take down information and then pass that along to their family so that they know what happened to them. Because these are now becoming more common, these required check-ins, and I can foresee that it's possible that ICE can just say, "Hey, we're just doing a regular check-in," and then they arrest them. So share the Know Your Rights information. That's ACLU's got the Know Your Rights card. They also call it a red card, and you can share that. It's in English and Spanish with different immigrants who they can with if they get stopped by police and the police are starting to ask them questions about immigration status and other things like that. That's completely outside of what they're supposed to be doing. They can just hand them that card, which says, I'm not going to answer your questions without an attorney present. I'm exercising my right to remain silent, and then they don't have to say anything. Um,
And to that, may
Yep.
I ask a few more things?
Sure.
If your intent is to warn people that ICE is in the area, can you ask loudly, repeatedly, "Are you an ICE officer?"
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Okay.
I mean, there's nothing wrong
Okay,
with
that's
finding
great.
out.
And then is it impeding, for instance, I have the information, like I have red cards and I have the Know Your Rights papers. If I am outside an immigration office or an ISAP office and I'm handing those out, am I impeding arrest?
No, I would say in that instance, no.
Okay.
You don't know if they're going to be arrested, right?
I see.
You don't know if they're under investigation or anything like that. And so this is just providing providing information about their legal rights, right? Now, if an officer comes out and asks you to leave the property, right, that might be a different story. But just providing information about people's constitutional rights is not a warning about their impending detention or.
Okay. And several questions about, do we know where those ISAP offices are specifically?
You can Google them. Yeah, I mean, there's one in Murray. There's one here in Ogden. There's one in Provo. And so you can find out where ICE offices are. You can find out where ISAP offices are. Um, and don't be surprised if it's just a door in an industrial complex where there's just a gray door and that's it. That's you think, well, how could this be an ICE office? Yeah, that's what it is. Um, Volunteering or making donations to immigrants' rights organizations. These are two that I like: National Immigration Law Center and the ACLU. And then, one other way is to contact your representative, congressperson, and say, "Hey, I don't like what ICE is doing. Right? Let's hold them accountable. Let's restrict what they can do." That's maybe the least effective at this point. I don't know, but it's something. So where are we headed? Gosh, it's honestly going to get worse. I'm sorry, it's going to get worse before it gets better. But ultimately, we have to be the safe space. We have to stand up to hate and discrimination, treat all people with dignity and respect, and hold people accountable for their words, actions, and policies. I mean, um, if U.S. citizens don't stand up and say we don't want this from our government, it's they're not listening to immigrants, right? They really don't have a voice, so it's kind of up to the rest of us. So this is my information. If anybody wants to reach out, contact me if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer those. And answer any questions that people have right now.
Dan, I just wanted to address something that you have offered before for anyone who's out there listening, and that is that Dan presents this information in fluent Spanish to groups of people who are in the immigration process, people who are working toward their green cards and different status. If you are interested in him having taking a minute to present this to people who are at risk, people who don't know their rights, people who need the help of an attorney, please contact him. He has offered that. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dan.
No, you're right.
But I feel like it's super helpful information, not just to people like us who want to help, but people who are living this in the now and don't know what their rights are and are probably intimidated and scared at this moment. Please reach out to Dan, and if you would like to organize something like that, get a hold of him or get a hold of me. I am also very, very happy to help set that up for you.
Right. I mean, I have a separate presentation that's specifically in Spanish and for Spanish speakers, but also just for immigrants, for immigrant groups. That is more specific to knowing their rights, what to do when you get pulled over, what to do when they show up at your door, what to do when they show up at your place of employment, right? And how to be prepared. So that's a separate presentation, but this presentation I give to lots of groups who are just people who are interested in knowing what is going on and what they can do about it. I wish there was more that we could do about it, but really just informing folks about what is happening and how it's affecting our communities, I think is vital.
Dan, if you don't have anything else, I don't think there's any more open questions.
Okay.
We are very, very grateful for this information. We're grateful for you volunteering your time. It was great. I really appreciate all of the participation. For those in the audience who are not very familiar with the League of Women Voters, just want to let you know, if you feel ready to take action and be involved, there are so many ways to do that. With the League of Women Voters, we watched the legislative session that starts next week. The League Utah has a website that has a legislative preview that tells you what we'll be watching. It has a way to watch what bills are in the session that we're watching and the status of those. The Prop 4 lawsuit, we've got a timeline from the president of the Utah League on her blog on our website. So there's just so many ways to be involved. It doesn't have to be with the League of Women Voters, but we really appreciate your attendance. We really appreciate Dan Black for presenting. Thank you so much. And I'll turn it over to Hillary.
Thanks. Thank you. If I could have a couple of wrap-up questions here, and then we're going to close the open questions. Oh, not a question here, but Pete would like to say you're a hero, Dan. I think that's interesting to share. And then someone says, school districts have sent letters home to parents about ICE being able to come in. They have assured parents that they would not allow them in. What is the advice here? Can you quickly speak to that?
Sure. So there are different actions that have been taken by school districts and by specific principals in schools. There have been some school districts who have published a policy and just said, hey, if ICE is going to attempt to come into any of our schools, they have to give us a week notice. And otherwise, if they just show up, we can turn them away completely, right? Because that is a district-wide policy. I love that. And that they have to tell us exactly who it is, like which student or which family of the student that they are coming for, right? So school districts can do that. And I've seen that here in Ogden already. And then I think Salt Lake as well. And then, but in the individual school, you can confine them to just the front office, right? It's that if that is the policy that every adult who comes in, they have to check in, right? Then you could say, okay, first of all, let me get your information. What is your name? Who's your supervisor? Who is it that you're here to see? These interactions are very rare. ICE does not like going into schools, right? They don't, and then first of all, we have not seen ICE enforcement against minor children. ICE is not interested in taking custody of minors. There is a whole new set of laws and regulations and things like that. If they are going to take custody of someone who's under the age of 18, they're just not interested in doing that. Um, and so it's rare that they would ever go into a school. But second of all, that they would be ever be looking for somebody inside a school. Okay, they may, if ICE is going to do enforcement against someone who's under the age of 18, they're typically picking them up directly from juvenile detention because they have committed a very serious felony. That's the only ICE enforcement I've seen against a minor. But yes, they can go into a school, and the school can, film them, require them to give information and things like that. But most often, what we've seen is ICE pulling parents over outside of schools, even after drop off or pick up, and they're doing ICE enforcement against the parents, not against the children.
Okay, we have someone saying, where could we find a model policy that you talked about for the schools where they have to have the week's notice, the school can turn them away, they need to notify you of a specific family?
Google the Ogden School District policy. And in fact, let me see if I can pull it up for you because I have it as a slide here that I typically, let me see if I can do this.
Thank you. While you're doing that, I'm just going to mention that the League of Women Voters website is listed in the Q&A. It is lwvutah.org.
And you can find your local league.
You can
your
find
county.
your county league there if you want to be a member of that. Go ahead, Dan.
Darn it. Let me see. I have to do it this way. I just had it up, but let me find it again. Here we go. I'm going to share this way. It's going to be very small on your screen because for some reason I can't. Okay, so here's an email that was sent to families from the Salt Lake City School District. And here is the resolution. It's resolution number 2017-01, passed by the Ogden School District and then reaffirmed at the beginning of 2025 when Trump took office. And so here's a resolution passed by the school district. You can Google it and find it online, but it's a great model in my opinion.
That's fantastic. Thank you. If you didn't get that, that was Ogden School District Resolution 2017-01.
Yes.
Okay. Does it need to be passed by the school district?
Yes, I believe.
Okay.
I mean, a resolution like this does. Yes, but there can be other internal school policies, by principals and things like that. And so as long as it's a policy that is being enforced, then it would be shocking if ICE uh, went against the policy in a very brazen fashion. I'm not saying it's not possible, but I haven't seen anything like that happen in Utah.
Thank you. A question here. Can men join the League of Women Voters? Absolutely. More than welcome to. Also, anyone is welcome at Citizens for Compassionate Change. You can find us on Instagram right now. We're so grassroots. So that's really the only place to find us at the moment. We hold meetings the fourth Tuesday of every month, usually in Bountiful, at a public place.
Is on next one.
What's that? Yes.
January 27th.
Our next meeting is January 27th. Reach out to us on our Instagram, Citizens for Compassionate Change. Dan, thank you so much. This has been something that has needed clarification, and in light of all of what's happening, I think it's good timing that we know what our rights are and how we can help our community members and our own schools and our public places. And I really appreciate your expertise and your time. Really, really thankful to the League of Women Voters for letting us co-host and for helping us kind of partner with them. They do a lot of good. If you are interested in more ways that you can be active, reach out to League of Women Voters or Citizens for Compassionate Change. I feel like a lot of people want to help and they just don't know where to go to be able to do that help. These are two great places that you can reach out to. So Angie's going to close us out. Again, Dan, thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who participated tonight for your wonderful questions and for just being here and being aware and caring about the same things that we care about. Thank you.
Just want to quickly say thank you again and get involved. We need help all the time. We welcome men, women, all of the above. Yes, thank you. Good night.